As students of astrology, there are some things that we need to know by heart in order to proceed further. Regardless of the level of interest and expertise that you want to reach on the subject, the content that we are discussing today lays the essential foundation for your overall development in the subject of astrology. As I mentioned, astrology are said to be the eyes of the Vedas. It is the manner in which we experience the Vedas in our day to day life. And if Vedas were to be substituted or juxtaposed by the Creator themselves, then it is the manner in which we interact with the Creator in its various forms. So let's work and attempt at increasing a little bit of depth to our understanding. Now, here on this table, I have mentioned the sequence in which the zodiacs are placed. For example, the first zodiac is that of Aries, the second zodiac is Taurus, the third is Gemini, fourth is Cancer, fifth is Leo, sixth is Virgo, seventh is Libra, eighth is Scorpio, ninth is Sagittarius, 10th is Capricorn, 11th is Aquarius, and last, the 12th is Pisces. Now, you might believe that just because you are born on a particular date, let's say 15th of April or 20th of April, that your sun sign is Aries, so the only thing that you need to learn is about Aries. But that is not true. In Vedic Jyotish, each of these 12 houses represent some aspect of your life. So while the first house could be Aries, or your sun could be in the house of Aries, or the moon could be in the house of Aries, yet your chart will necessarily have the role of Taurus, Gemini, and all the other zodiacs that are mentioned. So, for example, let's consider the chart here. You will notice that the first house is Aries, which means that the first house, which represents the body, the attitude of the person, such a person is Aries. And the lord of Aries is Mars. And we know Mars is the planet of war, courage. Mars is enterprising, entrepreneurial, passionate, and shows bursts of energy in activities that they do. With the sun in the ascendant, we can say that such a person is likely to be very energetic, proud, and a natural leader. But we will also see that 2, which is resourcefulness, is represented in the second house, which represents Dhanvani Kutumb, that is, the speech, wealth, and family. In other words, such a natural leader will attempt to be extremely resourceful for their family and will take great pride in providing for that family. The fact that Jupiter, the lord of religion, is in this house, we can be reasonably sure that such an individual will try to create a household in which religion plays an important role. Jupiter in the house of speech will also imply that even though this person comes across as an assertive, dominating individual, the person's speech will be of a very wise, learned individual. In the same chart, we will see 3, that is Gemini, representing the third house, which is that of courage and communication. We will see that Gemini as a zodiac is typically fun loving, and Mercury is the planet which is responsible for communication. While the second house represents speech, third house represents writing. And here we will see that the lord of the third is incidentally placed in a debilitated state in the 12th house. So while this child could be a great leader, We can say that writing is not coming naturally to this child, and that this child might have to work very hard in order to be a creative writer. Similarly, this assessment can be done for all the 12 zodiacs by seeing where they are placed, that is, what aspect of your life they govern, who is ruling them, and where are they placed, and finally, who is visiting these zodiacs. So, in today's video, we are covering the 12 zodiacs and the element which represents them to begin with. For example, we will see Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius represented by the fire elements. Whenever we see the fire zodiac or the fire sign in any zodiac, we can be reasonably sure that the aspects of the individual's life where these fire elements are placed, it is in these aspects the individual will get up and take decisive action. For example, if Aries, which is the most energetic sign, is placed in the first house itself, then we can assume that it is the individual who will have the energetic, hard-working, enduring attitude. Such an individual will be highly entrepreneurial and take great risks with the physical body. But if the same Aries is represented in the fourth house, where we know is represented by it represents the mother, then all those things that we just described about the individual will begin to be applicable for the mother. Similarly, if this were applied to the ninth house, then all the characteristics would be applicable to the father. So, in other words, whenever we see a fire element or wherever we see a fire element in the chart of the native, we should understand that it is these aspects that the native will go out and take decisive action on. Compare that with Earth. Earth represents those aspects of a native's life where they are stable, practical, and sometimes stubborn. Wherever we will see the earth elements, that is through Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn, the native will be very, very enterprising but in a quiet kind of a way. We will see those aspects of a native's life on which they are relatively reserved. Not everyone talks freely about everything. So, these aspects in which the native is quietly working on, but working very hard on, is represented by the earth elements, where they are located and how they are placed. Third, we will see Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius. These are represented by the air element, and what they really do is represent the engagement that the individual has with others around them. The element of air is responsible for all the meaningful and the frolic conversations that we have on a day to day basis. The question is, who do we have these conversations with, and what is the depth that they carry, and how do we see ourselves and the society as a whole? This attitude towards the others is shaped through these air elements. Individuals with air elements in the first house, for example, Libra, could be individuals who are absolutely great with people. They truly value the perspective of other people, and their prime focus is relationship building. While if we have 3, which is Gemini, in the first house, then such an individual will look at his or her peers, neighbors, colleagues, friends, younger siblings to build lasting relations. These individuals could work with them in teams in order to achieve great success in various aspects of life. Compare that with Aquarius, where the same personality traits of communicating, networking, and maintaining interpersonal relationships are upheld, but the only difference is that this is done with people higher up in society, that is, your elder siblings, your bosses, people who are well connected in society. So, where Gemini represents relations with your peers and subordinates, Libra represents relations at a social level with everyone and the value system that you carry in society, while Aquarius focuses on networking, innovating, and building relationships and a communication pathway with the best of the best in order to achieve great things. Finally, we will see Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces. Wherever we see these water elements, it is there that the individual is emotionally connected with something. For example, if Cancer is in the first house itself, then we can safely say that such an individual is a person of deep emotions and expressive. Whereas if Cancer is in the fourth house of the mother, then we can say the exact same thing about the individual's mother. So while Cancer represents deep emotions and and expressive emotions such as poetry, love, affection, Scorpio on the other hand represents occult and deep to reach difficult emotions. Scorpio will be the quiet thinker in the corner of a room doing a lot of research. So while a Cancer spends a lot of time in their mind and heart feeling things, a Scorpio does it too, but they don't express it just as much. And that relative lack of expression compared to that of Cancer is compensated by its ability to do deep work and get to great depths in matters of research. The eighth represents all that is below the earth and above the sky, which means everything that cannot be perceived and seen routinely is within the realms of the Scorpio. And compare that with Pisces. Pisces is the complete lost version of the most intelligent Jupiter. Pisces is said to be intelligence without focus. In other words, it is truly the realm of abstract. Such an individual could have creative thinkings beyond what most individuals can perceive. They can feel and complete processes in their mind much before they have happened. They can work very hard in their mind. All these elements, that is Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces, essentially represent emotions, and wherever they go, it is there that the individual is most emotional about these things. Once we have understood the element of each of these zodiacs, we can now understand the characteristics of the rulers of the zodiacs. For example, Aries is ruled by Mars, and I have used just one word adjective in order to summarize most things around Aries, and that one word is courage. You could easily replace this word by being entrepreneurial or enterprising. But in my view, courage is a reasonably good word to express Aries. Similarly, Taurus is ruled by Venus, and this represents resourcefulness. Gemini is ruled by Mercury, and this represents expression or communication. Cancer, ruled by Moon, represents happiness. In other words, if we see a chart where the Cancer house is extremely weak through measures that I will teach later, or if the Moon is extremely malefic, then we can safely infer that the individual is most likely going to be unhappy. If both Cancer as well as Moon become weak or extremely weak, then the individual could even become depressed. These combinations need to be seen in order to make a conclusive statement about something, and the process of how to infer if a house is weak or strong, or if a planet is malefic or benefic, is the process that we will outline later. For now, we need to understand that everything we see will be an application of things that we learn here, and we are only going to build on them. So the points that have been discussed right from columns B to E need to be memorized. Let's continue. The sign of Leo is ruled by Sun, and the one adjective that I have chosen is pride. One could replace it with self esteem, ego, leadership. So, an individual who has a strong Leo and a strong Sun could be extremely proud. And the downside, or the the negative side, is that if the individual either has a weak Leo or a weak Sun, then instead of pride, we could see vanity. If both Leo and the Sun are weak, then in such a case, we could see loss of self esteem. Virgo, the earth element ruled by Mercury, represents perfection. You see, Mercury is a highly analytical planet. It is very precise, it thinks very logically, and the core focus of Mercury is to achieve tangible success. This is expressed in Virgo. So, an individual who has a strong Virgo or a strong Mercury could be perfect in their approach to most things. And Mercury, incidentally, is also a very fast planet. So, contrary to what many believe, this perfection does not cause them to become slow. In fact, quite the contrary. They strive towards perfection, and they strive towards it because they assess that it is through perfection in technique, perfection in form, that they can achieve great speed, which is what actually Mercury loves to a great extent. Libra, ruled by Venus, is the egalitarian. That is, Libra sees how the relationships are with people. It does not try to see high and low, it does not create artificial barriers. Librans, strong Venus, try to value the individual or the relationship at its own merit at all times. Scorpio is ruled by Mars, and we all know that Mars actually represents a lot of energy. But in the house of emotion, Mars goes and allocates itself into research, into depth of understanding. You see, because water always represents emotions, and Mars, which is a planet of war and courage, in that house forces the individual to dive deep into certain specific aspects of their emotions, which typically leads them to taking research and deep study into many things. Sagittarius, a fire sign, represents decisive action in the house of religion. It is the house of good fortune. It is the house of your father. It is the house of your teachers, and very adequately represented by Jupiter. Capricorn is the most disciplined zodiac. A Capricorn, once determines what it has to achieve, will go to great lengths towards achieving it. And they're disciplined in that a Capricorn doesn't want to achieve too much in too many things. They typically choose the one or the very few related things that they wish to excel in. And they do that. They're very practical about their goals and very realistic in their approach. Aquarius. Aquarius wants to accomplish many things, but it wants to do that through collaboration, where the Capricorn represents working hard as an individual, the Aquarius represents working hard as team, and the Aquarius wants to create a team with socially very well placed individuals. Pisces, once again, the emotional element of water, now by Jupiter, which is the most wise planet, makes this a dreamer kind of a zodiac. Now, what does a dreamer mean? A dreamer means that the solution to most problems occur to them in the clarity of their thought. A Pisces is capable of repeatedly circling around a specific problem and then arriving at a conclusion without doing anything tangible, and all of this would be manifested in their head. And this would then be deployed through seemingly trivial action items. Once you have understood these personality traits of these planets, you will then begin to understand what exaltation and debilitation mean. Exaltation means that planet, that zodiac in which the planet is the most happiest. whereas debilitation means that zodiac in which the planet is the least happiest. These Mool Trikon and own houses represents the in-between state on the positive side. Similarly, we will have neutral and enemy houses, which represents the in-between state on the negative side. Each chart has its own Nesargic and Tatkalik Mitra and Shatru, which means temporary and permanent, friends and enemies. We will discuss that later. But certain things are fixed, and this is what has been pointed out. You will see that in the house of Aries, Sun is at it is at its happiest, which is the reason why Aries shows that all that because Sun loves the fiery element of Aries, it loves Mars. It's in the house of a great friend, and it is here that the leadership qualities of Sun meets with the natural courage of the individual, which makes for a very good combination. We will see that Mars is very happy here because it's in its own house, in its own Mool Trikon, which means we are looking at leadership along with courage. But what is unhappy is Saturn. You see, Saturn is the planet which values collectivity, which values effort in teams, it values process, it values a structured approach, and it is here Saturn is debilitated. In other words, the planets which exalt and the planets which debilitate give great information on the nature of that particular zodiac. So, wherever Aries is present in a person's house, it is there that the person will take decisive, courageous action. But what will be missing from that is planning, which Saturn gives. Let's look at Libra. In Libra, we will see that Saturn is exalted. What does an exalted Saturn mean? Like I said, Libra is a planet which values relations of everyone in society. Saturn in general represents the working class of the society. So, a zodiac which treats the working class and those segments of the marginalized segments of the society with utmost fairness and values them on their own principal behavior, it is here that Saturn is at its happiest. But Sun, who is the king, who is the leader, does not like that kind of interest and that kind of submission of time in trying to value everyone in society. Sun simply loves to give the orders, whereas Saturn likes to build processes. You will see that by understanding the planets which exalt and debilitate, that is, Sun exalting in Aries and debilitating in Libra, while Saturn exalting in Libra and debilitating in Aries, it gives us a lot of information of the nature of that particular zodiac. And what you will have to do is basically see which house, which aspect of your life is governed by these zodiacs. Let's cover a few more. You will note that in the house of quiet efforts and resourcefulness, Moon and Rahu are at its happiest. That's largely because the second house, in addition to being resourceful and quietly, practically hardworking, is also the house of communication, which Rahu truly enjoys. In this house of actual wealth, speech, communication, it is Ketu, the planet of detachment, that actually gets debilitated. It is not necessary that each of these zodiacs will have a planet which will exalt or debilitate, but it is necessary that each of these zodiacs are owned by someone. So let's go through this. We will note that in Cancer, Jupiter exalts while Mars debilitates, and the reverse of it is true for Capricorn, where Mars exalts and Jupiter debilitates. You see, Capricorn is disciplined hard work. Mars loves that. But Jupiter, who's the teacher, working hard for materialistic gains, Jupiter doesn't particularly enjoy that. Jupiter loves academics. Jupiter loves to be in the heart and be happy. So Jupiter gets exalted in Cancer, but Mars doesn't like that. Mars wants to go out and fight and demonstrate courage. What is Mars doing in the comfort of its own home? Jupiter loves the comfort of its own home. Next, we see Virgo. Mercury, the planet of logic, exalts in Virgo. Whereas Mercury, the same planet of logic, debilitates in Pisces, because Pisces is the dreamer. And a planet of logic, if it ever happens to visit the dreaming planet, is not very, very happy there. Then who is happy? The answer is Venus. That's largely because Venus is the planet of abstract. Venus is the planet that connects the five senses: the sense of touch, smell, taste. All the five senses are basically governed by Venus. In other words, through music, Venus produces and connects with the sense of sound. Through great food and drinks, Venus connects with us through sense of taste. Through great clothes, fashion, Venus connects with us through the sense of touch. Venus truly likes to see and experience beautiful things, and that's the reason why it is Venus who becomes the artist and the performing artist. But that cannot be said about Mercury. Mercury has a very specific objective. Mercury is what keeps us real in this world. So, a chart which has a stronger Venus than Mercury is most likely going to be of an individual who's pursuing theatre rather than accounting. Similarly, we will see that that planet, an artist, gets debilitated in the house of logic. That is, Venus gets debilitated in Virgo. Ketu, the planet of detachment, actually excels in the house of research. You see, Ketu and Mars are of the same element of fire. And when Ketu reaches the 8th house, that individual could absolutely excel in deep study. But the planet who loves to have fun and communicate and stay happy, that is Rahu and Moon, they debilitate in such a house. That is not the place to keep the heart. Now, with this basic assessment of all the 12 houses, what planets exalt, what planets debilitate, what elements they have, and the simple use of adjective, I have tried to make the process of learning this slightly easier. We will continue with our series in learning subsequently. I wish you all the best.